and you're going out and shooting moving targets, tanks, um, doing full engagements with Hellfire's dual ship and everything like that. And then you kind of move into like the combat search and rescue side. So you're doing hot infills, hot exfills, and then you get to do full mission profile with Top Gun and early warning, where they bring in the prowlers and everything like that.
Welcome to the Calm in the Chaos podcast, where we discuss untold heroic experiences and dive into the mindset of the Navy's elite rescue swimmers. Hosted by former U.S. Navy Aviation rescue swimmer, Mount Everest solo summiteer, and best-selling author Brian Dickinson.
Hey everyone, it's Brian Dickinson. If you're enjoying these stories, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these conversations, and it keeps the mission alive. And if you want early access to new episodes and to support what we're building, consider becoming a Spotify paid subscriber. Your support means everything. Now let's jump in so others may live. So today we have John Brown, 10 years of service, kind of spanning across lots of interesting concepts that we could do in our rate. So I'm just excited that you reached out. We've had a couple conversations, and here we are. Welcome.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where'd you grow up?
Well, I actually am lucky enough to grow up in the beautiful Emerald Coast, just outside of Pensacola. Born and raised here, and then left, moved down south to Central Florida. Did that for a while, and at that point in time, that's where I decided to join the military. And luckily, got orders back to Pensacola to be an instructor, and came back home.
Yeah, man, that is awesome. So growing up in Pensacola, I mean, you got everything occurring over the sky. So
Yeah.
was that motivating? Because sometimes, like, I think growing up in like a military-ish town, it can go one way or the other.
It was, but so I actually grew up 50 miles east of Pensacola in Fort Walton Beach area. So all the
Mhm.
Air Force bases are here.
Mhm.
Eglin, Hurlburt, all those are here. And my dad was a contractor working on jets. So of course, growing up, I was like, oh, I got to be a pilot. I wanted to fly jets, and then academically just didn't meet that standard and got tired of school, failed out of college, and
Congrats.
yeah, ended up moving down south and working in the surf industry for a while. But I tried joining the Coast Guard right out of high school to be a swimmer, and I was just in that awkward stage of life trying to figure out who I am. I was real lanky and just a surfer kid, and the recruiter. This was probably 2005. The recruiter walked in, had a few conversations, and he goes, "Yeah, sounds good, but you're not going to make the program," and got up and walked out.
Wow,
So I was
it's
like,
motivating.
yeah. So that put a real sour taste in my mouth, and so I actually didn't end up joining. So that was in 2005. I didn't end up rehashing that until about 2011. So I tried joining the Air Force. Spent about a year with the AVSOC DEP program down at Patrick Air Force Base, and which is now a Space Force base magically. But and did that whole route, and then they changed their tattoo policies. And at that time, I had 3/4 sleeve, and I had more than 20% of an exposed body part, and so I did not qualify for entry.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is really weird. What's that like now? I think because it's so trendy, everyone's pretty much body covered. Like you'd have no one joining.
Um, every branch goes through its waves, because when I was still active, the Navy came out, said, "Hey, you can get a tattoo on your hand, not to exceed past the knuckles." And then it was like, "Hey, you can get a tattoo on your neck, no greater than 1 inch by 1 inch or whatever."
Hmm.
But at that time, the Air Force was a strict, "Hey, no exposed, more than 20% of an exposed body part in an inspectable uniform." And at that time, the PT uniform was an inspectable uniform for them.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had from the middle
So
of my
just a
forearm all the
tight
way up.
banana hammock and
Yeah,
anything exposed, you're
yeah,
out.
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Um, And so that my dad and grandfather were both Navy. They did the whole Vietnam time frame, and I
Same.
guess that curved my path to deciding to go to the Navy at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how that works. Just kind of that seed is planted. Even as when you're young, you may be full on board or you're fighting it, but then eventually it kind of comes back around and there's, I don't know, just some USA pride, some
Yeah,
patriotism, something there. You feel like you want to do something bigger than yourself. You want to serve. And I think we're all glad, it's good that, at the time failing out of college may have seemed like the end of the world, but then it was actually the beginning of the world for you.
right. And for me, it just ended up being like there was a void, something was missing.
Hmm.
I was like, I feel stale in my life. I'm not going anywhere. I'm, working in the surf industry as a traveling sales rep. And I was like, I've made it. Like I made it in the surf industry. And then it was just like, man, this isn't cutting it. Still struggling month to month to make my ends meet. And then it's like, hey, I'm going to go join the military. And then realize like, oh, man, pay sucks here too.
Yep,
Uh,
that's true. But you got free medical.
yeah, exactly.
Um, so I'm curious, like surf industry, like I was stationed in San Diego, so obviously some big surf. In Florida, not so big surf, but it's still pretty popular, right? Like you're
Right. Yeah.
obviously.
So the crazy thing about Florida, it has more world champs per capital than any other state in the United States.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And they're all from pretty much the same area, everywhere from, we'll say, just north of Cocoa Beach to south of Sebastian Inlet area. And most of the major surf brands all have reps for Florida that travel the entire state and push the product.
Hmm.
But yeah, so like Kelly Slater and all the big names, CJ Hobgood, the most recent female world champ, Caroline Marks. She
Hmm.
actually is from Satellite Beach, Cocoa Beach area. It's
Interesting.
just stacking them up, all dating all the way back to the 1980s for world champs from Florida.
Uh-huh. Huh, that's interesting. I guess just growing up, on the water and, unlike the West Coast, like it's um, every day of the year you can get out, so you're probably getting out more, and then it's just wanting to get some bigger waves, and you get out there and you get good on those small waves, and then you get good on the big waves. And you still have some decent size, right? You just when storms come in and everything.
Storms come in. Wintertime is our better series of waves. You get a lot of cold fronts and stuff that push across Texas and then go out into the Gulf and really churn it up. But yeah, I haven't surfed in probably 2 months because it's just been flat.
Hmm.
So that's just the typical
That's where
summer.
that's where paddle boards come in.
Yeah,
It's like walking
yeah,
on water. So
yeah.
if Florida produces the most professional surfers, what state do you think produces the least?
Probably Washington.
We have water at least. No, I'm thinking like I am in Washington. Where I was thinking like Nebraska or something.
Yeah, it's realistically, unless they move to the coast when they're young, because you're never going to go pro unless you make a name for yourself by the time you're 16.
Hmm.
And in that case, it's like after 16, do a bunch of, local contests and stuff and be a local semi-pro, get sponsored and all that, but you'll never make it to a qualifying circuit or to the world tour.
Hmm.
So that's the tough part.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife grew up in SoCal, Inland Empire, so she grew up in Paris, California, which is where like Jeremy McGrath and like all the Supercross come from. But her cousin is actually Richie Collins. So,
Nice.
so he was big,
Yeah.
obviously. And now his daughter is crushing it and everything else. But yeah, you're right. I mean, she started super young. He started young. And yeah, there's just certain sports that like you have your shot. If you miss it, it's pretty tough when you turn 50 and you want to get involved. And then you play pickleball.
Yeah. And it's one of those things here on the Gulf Coast. It's like we call it. the redheaded stepchild of the surf community because the East Coast of Florida is known for being the small wave capital of the world, but the Gulf Coast, it's like kind of like you blink and it's gone. Nobody
Mm.
thinks about it. So we're always 3 years behind, 3 to 4 years behind the West Coast when it comes to anything surf industry or trends or anything like that. It takes forever for it to make it over to us. It'll get over to the East Coast in about 2 years, and then about a year to two later, it comes back to us.
Wow,
It's
that's wild.
yeah,
You would think like with the just information, AI, internet, everything, back when it was like horse and buggies, I could see that, the message is taking a while to get across, but I guess that's just how the world works.
it's over here, and from going over here, it's Panhandle, Florida's Lower Alabama. That's what we call it, LA. So a lot of people don't align with the trends that are happening, and then the
Mhm.
younger crowd start picking it up, and then it takes a little bit for the movement to make it through. But you know, very very few and far between, I would say.
Yeah. All right. All right. Enough about surfing.
Yeah,
Let's talk about Navy surfing. So you went in 2011. Is that when you?
that's when I dapped in with the Air Force,
Okay.
2011. So at that point in time, I would have been about, I would say, 23, 24.
Okay. So an old man.
Yeah, exactly. I was the grandpa trying to join and did that and then spent about a year or more. Recruiter disappeared. He left for about 9 months. And then that new tattoo policy came out and then went in and measured me up. And on the computer, big old red tape says does not qualify for entry. And walked out and it was at the mall. So I walked out and sat at the bench right in the front and looked at all the branches and weighed my options. And I was like, the Navy doesn't sound so bad. My grandpa was in the Navy. My dad was Navy. Let's go give it a try.
Hmm.
Walked in and talked to the recruiter, and the recruiter got me. He said, "You're an old man. You can't do it. We're not hiring anybody that's regular jobs. We're only going to do special warfare stuff."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Man, I don't want to go through all this. I'm just ready to join the military." And started running down the list. He asked me, he's like, "You want to be a SEAL?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. My grandfather was a frogman. I know that life, and I'm not trying to live it." And then diver brought that all those up, brought up SWIC, and I was like, "I have no idea what SWIC is. Like, you're out of your mind." He goes, "Well, what are you trying to do in the Air Force?" And I was like, "I wanted to be a PJ." He goes, "Rescue swimmer, right up your alley. It's perfect." Like, okay. So signed up for that and started doing all my PSTs. And, back, I don't know if it's so much the same now, but then it's like you do your PSTs, they put the scores into a portal and you go through a draft and they start picking people that have good scores, get selected in the draft, and then go through. And so my recruiter was like, "Yeah, you're definitely going to get it. Let's not worry about it. Let's just get you out to MEPS, get you through everything, and get you a contract." So just me trying to leave, I signed an undes airman contract.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, and then went through all that. Went back for a rescreen in Jacksonville, and when I was there with the yeoman, Master Chief walked in screaming my name and walked up to me and he goes, "Did you try out for air rescue?" I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "Congratulations, you got selected. Rip
Wow.
up the contract, sign him a new one."
I'm so lucky.
Yeah, that would have been thinking about it. I told my dad, and he was like, "Why would you ever sign Dad's contract?" I was like, "I have no idea." So,
I know. Yeah. When you're on that side of it. Yeah. I was going through rescue swimmer school and I just completed it and my good friend, Joe Sutherland, he was like a year behind me. Same type of thing. He was all excited. I called him. He's like, "Yeah, I signed up and I'm going on DES." And I just remember like, "You stupid idiot." I'm like, "You go back there right now and you get at least a guaranteed shot." And he's like, "Why are you yelling at me?" And, but it's crazy because that can be the whole trajectory of your career. And he thanks me all the time because he had a great career as a rescue swimmer. But yeah, it's can't
it's
believe the recruiters.
yeah, they're just trying to fill a quota. That's all they're doing their job. So
Want to show your support for Calming the Chaos and the stories of our nation's elite rescue swimmers? Check out our exclusive merch line shirts, hats, and stickers designed for those who live with courage and purpose. Military and first responders get 10% off each order. Just use the code SARRESCUE10, SARRESCUE, the number 10, SARRESCUE10, at checkout. Grab yours today on Amazon or briandickinson.net/store and wear your support proudly so others may live. Yep. So you went to Great Lakes, and did they have the dive motivator at that
Yep.
point? Cool.
So we would, I was at that time we had 800 divisions. I would, we'd wake up at 3:30 in the morning, hike to the other side of base, and go to the pool with all the other spec war guys. And I forgot he was a SO, the senior chief, and he would just walk around in his khakis and just spray everybody with a hose and do all these goofy things that everybody everything that you can imagine. But, it was nice because we got to go swim, do a little bit of a workout, but it sucked because it was 4:00 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning.
Yep. Yeah, but yeah, it gets you prepared. So then you went to Pensacola, back home.
Pensacola, did air crew school. That was like playing in a recess, going out for recess and PE.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that tries to be a swimmer gets the air crew, and then you're just overly prepared.
Hey, if you love high-stakes action, military intrigue, and stories that keep you turning pages late into the night, you won't want to miss my new thriller, Bloodline of Redemption. From a rogue Russian submarine on a covert nuclear mission to the unforgiving peaks of the world's deadliest mountains, it's a non-stop ride of suspense and survival. Order your copy now on Amazon or wherever books are sold and dive into the mission.
Left there and went to SAR school. And at that point in time, we had what we called Starboard D. And when it would come to one day, everybody in Starboard D would class up. So you'd have 30 to 35 people out there, and then they would select from that group who was going to be in the next class.
Oh.
And so, obviously all the rock stars got selected quick, and then they just started making it through. And then, my class started with probably about 20, and we had 6 or 7 originals graduate. Mm-hmm. I had two Bulgarian lieutenants in my class.
No.
And that was interesting because just imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger yelling at a bunch of petty officers. And so we went through all that. He would swim half the pool in underwater. So he would swim on the surface halfway, and instructors would be yelling at him, and just whatever your best Arnold impersonation is, looking back at him and say, "I'm the officer, you listen to me." And so we had a bunch of good jokes and laughs about that. But, left that, and then I sat on grad hold for a little while at the schoolhouse, and basically that was fun because, ever since the recce incidents, they eliminated the instructor on student kind of evaluations. Mm-hmm. So we got to be the aggressive, combative survivors and stuff like that. So it was fun because you really got to put them through the works.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, especially when you're the graduating class. Now you get a little redemption. You're being hit by the past class. So okay, so since you were obviously fit going into it, you're a surfer. Assuming you're a surfer, not just surf sales.
Yeah.
How do you think that helped get you through as far as your comfort in the water?
It helped a lot, extremely a lot. I remember doing mask clearing and going down and just laying on the bottom of the pool, putting my mask on, clearing it, looking at the instructor, and he's like telling me to come up, and I come up, and I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Where are you from?" I was like, "I'm from Destin area." And he goes, "You're comfortable in water, aren't you?" I was like, "Oh yeah, this is my place." He goes, "I can tell." And so it was just one of those things. And also I was, when I was going through the schoolhouse, I was 25.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had a little bit more maturity than a lot of the 18-year-olds going through. And
do you think that helped?
Helped a lot.
Okay. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? But you can come in and have this confidence, and it can work, the fine line between cocky and ass, so it's like you balance that out. But yeah, if you have that maturity, and you probably have that perspective because you see these young kids that don't have the life experience. So
Right.
you almost, become that father or grandfather, or even in your case, great grandfather figure.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps a lot. I also, through the course, I ended up becoming the team leader. And it was a good thing, but it was also a bad thing because
Mhm.
you want to be there for your friends and everything, but you're also like, hey, let's make sure we get this stuff taken care of. So it's like, if we don't do this right, we're just going to get our asses kicked.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of things back and forth. Some people didn't want to show up to class meetings and stuff like that, and it just became a headache. And we got our asses kicked, and I kept getting asked like, why, what's going on? Like, I tried to keep it back for a while, but being the older guy and just like, I got life experience. I'm like, this is my only shot. This is what I got. And
Yeah.
so, you know changed the out course of how the class laid out for everybody, but it was good. And um, I really think the schoolhouse itself changed a whole perspective in my life. Just seeing other instructors and how they handle things, and it really paved my path. So I think you know, it was one thing when I left there. I was like, I want to come back as an instructor
Well,
because everybody does it. It's like, hey, I want to come back as an instructor. This is fun. I want to be able to yell and scream at kids while they're swimming and do all that. But the instructor life isn't always as keen as it seems when you're a student.
hmm. Yep. I'd imagine. Okay. So what was the hardest part for you? Like, did you get rolled back on anything, or not rolled back, but fail flight
Um,
training or anything?
I think the only thing I failed was probably our first or second multi. Just I tried to think about that, but a lot of stuff was pretty straightforward. But yeah, I think it was the multis, just how they try to throw a wrench into everything and, hey, why'd you do this? You should have done it this way. And, just kind of critique from there and escalate.
Mhm.
But outside of that, not really anything. I passed my finals first go, medical first go, and um, pretty smooth transition, I think. Just trying
Cool.
to repetitions, learn it and get it knocked out.
Yeah. So from there, was A school in Pensacola at that point, or was it?
Yeah. So AWA school, was in Pensacola and split across all the rates. So AWRs and O's were in one, S's had their own, V's. This is when V's and F's were still around. And I think they pretty much I think they got rid of the V and now it's just AWF. So,
Okay.
but yeah, AWS A school was only like 5 weeks long.
Hmm.
Pretty simple land nav and things like that.
Were you anti-submarine warfare? Like,
No, I was, all the submarine stuff was done by the AWRs and AWOs, so the P3 guys.
hmm.
And then the S's, we are basically just logistic drivetrains.
Okay. That's cool. Cool. So from there, where'd you go?
So I left Pensacola and went to Kittery, Maine for SEER. And I went through SEER in April, April timeframe. So hot during the day and freezing cold at night.
Yep.
That was interesting. You really got to see what they're trying to expose you to and learn and just see that you're all treated the same. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or girl.
Mhm.
Everybody's standing there. You're getting sprayed down with a hose. Can't give all the secrets, but yeah, that was a fun one for me because I love being outdoors.
Yeah. Just a beautiful camping trip.
Yeah, and then you'd look out across the horizon and you see a ski resort and you're like, dude, what? Come on, let's just go.
Uh, that's torture in itself. Um, What do you think your biggest takeaway from SEER was?
Well, obviously the goal is to always return with honor, but
But you personally, because we all grow. You don't go into SEER and come out the same person.
made me more rigid than I was when it comes to experiences instead of because being a surfer, everything's pretty laxy daisy. You're like, yeah, whatever.
Yep.
And then going through that and experiencing that, and you like, hey, like we like to say in my family, you can't be a wet noodle. So, you're really starting to like stiffen up. So you go from, SAR school and do that and then SEER, and it's just, you get a lot of exposure and a lot of mental preparedness of what's to come, and how you receive it and apply it will make or break your career
Mm-hmm.
in every way, shape, or form. Because, like, yeah, they're trying to teach you how to return with honor and do all this stuff, but they're also molding you
Yeah.
still trying to teach you how to be that fighting force that you need to be. And I think that was a big thing, is that it mental clarity and mental toughness.
Yep.
So
For sure. Okay. So then you went, where did
HSC
you,
two,
where?
HSC two,
HSC. Where is that?
that's in Norfolk, Virginia,
Okay.
Fleet Angels, and then went through the FRS there, and that was fun, because it wasn't my first time flying because I got to do jumps at SAR school,
Oh, okay.
because there used to be a helo squadron in Panama City that did all the anti-mine warfare, submarine warfare testing for the 60 platform.
Hmm.
And so we did jumps there, but that was three fire hoses at once, trying to fill your brain full of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to, you got, as learn the helicopter and apply it, come back, learn something else, go apply it, and
Mm-hmm.
just run through that. And that one was interesting because I graduated and then the government shutdown happened. So everybody that was in my class just sat on hold, and we got designated as air crewmen at HSE2 and flew all the FAM flights for the student pilots, and talk about near death experiences. All those pilots are, learning how to do autos and everything like that. And they just want to smash a pedal when they go nose up, start the
Mm-hmm.
flare. And so, yeah, that was a quite interesting time. But
Yeah. How long did that last?
I graduated in October, so about 3 months.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
did you get your wings at that point then?
No. Yeah, they established a PQS that you would have to do, but they allowed me to start the PQS at 2, but I couldn't get any final sign offs until I got to my fleet command.
Okay. Where was that?
HSC 22, the Sea Knights. And it's RIP. They deconned them about 3 years ago.
Mm.
But yeah, I went to HSC 22 in January and started my whole qualification process and deployed in June of that year. I did the USNS Arctic and did a North Arabian debt, supplying the fleet up there during OEF OIF. So
Okay.
that was interesting in itself, but it wasn't an eye-opening experience because I used to live in the Middle East as a kid. So so it was like all the culture and the vibes, everything that goes on there is, something I was used to from growing up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unique. That makes you a unique asset as well.
Yeah.
Help others kind of because that can be like part of the shock as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes lack of respect because you hear not for you, but for first time, being young, going over and all you know is what you know from what the media tells you on this side, and then you get there and you realize these are humans. And
Yeah. Yeah.
um, wow, okay, so tell us about some interesting experiences you had.
That deployment, it was pretty benign, really. We did the whole, you know, con rep, vert rep thing. That was our main establishment out there. Had a couple experiences with some Iranian fast boats during con rep and pushing into mom and everything, but nothing really came to fruition of that. Just typical Iran testing waters.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, we got home. So that was June to November, you know, pretty simple, got fully qualified, ended up becoming a utility crewman on that deployment. And found out like on our transit home, crossing the pond, that I was deploying again in May. So got home November, found out I was deploying in May, but this one was on the USS Wasp, LHD-1, first and finest. And that was going to be traditional combat deployment. This is when the community was transitioning to doing HSC combat deployments. So you would leave with 3 aircraft, and they were all fixed out with wings, ready to do rockets, guns, Hellfires. Mm-hmm. So they were transitioning into that. So we had to do our HARP, so that our pre-qualification stuff, almost for like the carrier guys, like air wing FAL and stuff. Mm-hmm. But since I was expeditionary, we never did air wing FAL. So you just get tested by your local weapons schools at that time to see if your group is ready to deploy, because you only deployed with 6 pilots and 6 air crewmen, or 9 and 9 and 3 aircraft.
Was HARP, was that there in Virginia?
Yes. And so you start ground school in Virginia, do some flights, but we ended up going down to Jacksonville and using a lot of ranges down there. Mm-hmm. And then go through that whole process. That ended up being, so you start that in June, that was in January. Ground school ended the middle of January, and then spend from January to middle of February in Jacksonville. And then when you get back from that, now you got to go do all the ship qualifications, CQ and all that.
Yeah, you're more busy than when you're on deployment. Like you get back, it's like, that's crazy.
And so, workups and everything started January, left in May. And that one was a little bit more interesting of a deployment. We ended up getting redirected to Africa for Operation Odyssey Lightning. And that was in response to ISIS taking over Libya. And so that's when a lot of new schematics and rules of the road were changed based off of how flights were going. And the Marines were doing Hellfire shots at 9 to 11K, which is insane. But that deployment was very wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. I remember flying starboard D one night and just seeing tracers going off in the distance. And I'm asked the crew, I'm like, you guys see those tracers? And they're like, okay, Brown, whatever. You're just making stuff up. Here we go again, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, seriously. And I was like, wait till we come back around on our downwind and look. And the sky was lighting up, explosions were happening, and that was the kickoff of the fight. But it wasn't really, there was no U.S. personnel on the ground over there. But so that deployment, we ended up, all of our crewmen got courier cards. So if we could just walk straight to the armory, if we needed to get M4s and M11s, give them the card, and we could transit the ship with them. Mm-hmm. Luckily enough, we never had to do that because we never had a SAR happen for us. But the Marines were really putting the work in. It was that deployment, there was more ammunition from one single ship. It's the most ammunition deployed from one single ship since the first Gulf War.
Oh, wow.
So it was over 200 bombs and I think just about 100 Hellfire missiles put into Africa. And so that was, interesting. And, that deployment it stayed busy. You really get into the set routine of the typical air crewman. You wake up, you eat, you work out, you fly, you come back, debrief, eat, go to sleep. And that was it. There was never really any soft downtime to do anything, because as traditional Navy ships, they like to go into what they call River City. And then the Gator also had Gator City. So you could shut down the entire external communication to the world because we're in the middle of doing stuff. Mm-hmm. That made things fun. That made it tough, really tough, because I had a, wife and pregnant wife back home and a year-old daughter. So, you go 3 weeks without having communication. So that makes things really tough.
Yeah, that's really hard. And for them especially,
Yeah.
one, it's your contact to
Yeah.
your life, you're out operating, but sometimes, most of the times, being at home is just brutal. It's so unfair, and it's just part of what we do, but
Yeah.
signed up for it, and now you have the
Yeah.
rest of your life to beg for forgiveness. And
So, but I became a fully qualified crew chief on that flight across all mission sets. At that point in time, we were doing PR, SOF, and CAS and ASUW or ASW, and that getting fully qualified for that and that whole deployment really changed the curve in my career. Came home and basically started doing more flights with the weapons school, and the senior chiefs and everybody I flew with were like, "Hey, this guy's pretty good." And they would go to my senior chief and be like, "You need to look at sending him to SWTI school." And it was one of those things I was like unsure. I was like, "Yeah, I don't really know. It's not really the path I want to go." But I'm interested in it. And then it was one of those FCF day, and my senior chief goes, "Hey, you need to decide if you want to go to SWTI." I was like, "All right, well, I'm about to go fly for FCF. I'm not really in the headspace to talk about that right now, so I'll let you know when I get back." And as soon as we get to the aircraft and rotor starts spinning, I get a text, and he said, "Make sure your nom sheet's filled out on my desk by the time you get back." Like, what the heck? And so basically, I got voluntold to go to SWTI school, and that itself was. So I got home from that deployment. Workup started in January, left in May, got home Christmas Eve, and then went to SAR PO school in Jacksonville in February, and then a month and a half later left for SWTI school. And so that was about almost 3 months long out in Fallon.
Mhm. For those that don't know, it's SWTI, because there's non-Navy people that listen to this.
That's Seahawk Weapons and Tactics Instructor School. So the best way to describe it is ran by the same command that does Top Gun. So they decided that, hey, we could create a Top Gun for fighter pilots after Vietnam, because dogfighting was really down. And then it just kind of progressed, and then started getting more into the helo, infill, exfil life, doing a lot more door gunner, ground pound stuff. And so they were like, hey, we see a need for it for helos. And I don't know exactly when the school was founded for the helicopters. I would say it was late 90s timeframe. It started to come online. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, I was still in then. I don't remember hearing about it, but maybe
Yeah.
maybe it existed. Do you know if is it all rotary, like
Yes.
rotary and
Well,
everything?
no. So it is all rotary. So SWTI school is all rotary wing across the 60 Sierra and the 60 Romeo. But then you get executive spots where like a corpsman can go. The corpsman can go and do the whole ground school and get the executive SWTI pass. So you learn the full ins and out on how to intel briefs and basically weapon system stuff, but they would never really execute on flights unless they saw a need for it. And so I only know of one exec that went through that did the whole entire school and did the whole class, did all the flights and everything like that. My class, we had two 53 crewmen because they were trying to establish a kind of like a Seawolf training plan for the 53. And so they brought two instructors from the HM squadron that were going to go to the weapons school to establish their program to get their ground school and learn how to do it so they could be designated as a SWTI exec pretty much. So then at that point in time, I think they would be considered them a level 4 instructor, so a level 4I for their community. And then outside of that, everybody had weapons school as a level 5. So that's the highest you can get. So when you leave SWTI school, you become a 4I in the community. So you become a big Navy's tactics instructor that is embedded into commands instead of being at a weapons school.
Cool. Well, how was that?
It was fun. Some of the best flying I've done. Going out there, and it was the first time I really got to experience flying in the mountains. I was there in the heat of the summer, so all of your values and everything are down, so your power margins are really slim, and you're doing some pretty fun and crazy flights, to get a whole weapons time. Where you're doing CAS and you're going out and shooting moving targets, tanks, doing full engagements with Hellfire's dual ship and everything like that. And then you kind of move into like the combat search and rescue side. So you're doing hot infills, hot exfills, and then you get to do full mission profile with Top Gun and early warning, where they bring in the prowlers and everything like that. So that was fun. You really get to experience what the aircraft is capable of and dive into what our community and the men and women that do our job are capable of. So, and you kind of eat it up and love it so much, because people just that aren't SWTIs, they always say, you drank the Kool-Aid, you got sucked into it. But it's because you got to experience the full capability of that aircraft and yourself and the people around you. And it really opens your eyes. You think about, I don't want to compare us, but think of like the Jolly Greens, the SAR guys in the Air Force. Those guys love it. They love it, love it, love it, because they get to experience what that aircraft is capable of.
Yep.
So from that on, it's like that will continue to drive you to want to fly. So, but it also turns around and bites you in the ass when you get back to the command, because now you're one of 3 people in the command to have this qualification, and you're the youngest one.
Yeah.
So I was an E5 at that time.
So do you think some of the responses that you had, the reactions, were based on greed, or just, I don't know, just, again, it's the unknown. It's some people that think college is just a piece of paper. And then when you go to college, you're like, no, you're educated, you learn a lot, but it's just this ignorant perspective sometimes.
I mean, it really breaks down into 2 paths. It's the best way I can describe it is, we're all rescue swimmers at heart, but some people stick with the traditional SAR path, and that's like their bread and butter, and they are good at it, and they can execute. Then you go to the other path, the tactics path, and you still have to be good at being a swimmer, but you also have to be really good at doing the tactical side, because now you're evaluating command, you're evaluating other commands, and you really have to understand how each one of these tactical systems operate, so you can be that person that leads by example and instructs and gives the best input where it's needed. If a pilot's, using the FLIR to do a Hellfire shot, but their FLIR's off center, and you correct them with like, hey, I think you should do it this way so you don't get X, Y, Z. And so you kind of have to learn the entire aircraft when it comes to the tactical weapon systems.
Yep. All right. So you go back, and then were you able to deploy and put some of this to the test?
I ended up deploying again in January of 18. So I got back end of August, September of 17 from SWTI school, deployed again in January of 18. But this was on a supply ship again, but we were going to England and stuff because they had a joint NATO exercise called FOST, which is flag officer ship training. So, get all these ships working together, but they also, other countries send like their JTACs and stuff like that. So we got to really do a lot of cool stuff flying in with them. got to go to Scotland. Like this actual picture right behind me. I don't know if you can really see it.
Oh yeah, I've been looking at it the whole time. That's awesome.
Yeah, my buddy Mike took that. Burn actually made that painting for me of a picture that somebody took. But we're in Scotland, flying through the Scottish Highlands. We're going up and
That's awesome.
doing a lot of close air support flights with like the Finnish JTACs and Germany, a whole bunch of other nations, and that was awesome because you really get to see like the Scottish culture and their history,
Hmm.
but then you also get to go lay lead and do work out there. So
Hmm.
it's like you really get to experience both sides of it.
Do
And
the Scottish, when they're flying, do they wear kilts?
yeah, yeah,
You go.
that'd be funny. But it could also be a bad thing with a gust of wind flying through the aircraft.
That's right. Yeah, because you can't unsee that.
You never unsee that. But yeah, some of the craziest JTACs I ever worked with were the Finnish
Yeah,
guys. They wanted you.
crazy. Define crazy.
Um, so say you're doing a gun run and you get a call for fire over the radio, but their remarks and restrictions that they would ask for would be, "Hey, we want to feel our hair shake from the rotor wash, and we want hot lead to hit us in the head." So,
Okay. Yep. That's crazy.
so, and then but that whole entire deployment was meant for just doing training for NATO countries.
Hmm.
So that was from January to June, into May, June timeframe.
Do you run into any like mishaps or SAR situations?
Um, I didn't. We had a couple SAR stuff. I was never on the flight on any of them across any of my deployments for SAR, but yeah, just a few here and there. Fishermen's having heart attacks out in the middle of the North Atlantic.
Mm.
Um, Medevac stuff off of other ships.
Yep.
As we all know, we get tons of medevacs, but don't always get SARs. So,
Well, I would probably say that's a SAR, but
yeah,
we in the
I mean,
field, if you're not entering the water and doing like the typical RSS stuff, it's not. But yeah, lots of medevacs.
like but you get crazy stuff. Like I had one medevac where I showed up on a ship and they said the guy had extreme abdominal pain, couldn't walk. So I get to the ship and start talking to the corpsman, and I'm like, "Where's the patient?" He's standing right next to you. I looked at him and I was like, "I thought he wasn't mobile." No, he's mobile. He just needs to go get checked out. He might have appendicitis. And I was like, "Okay, so he's walking." Like, yeah. They're like, "Here's his bag." I was like, "I'm not carrying his stuff." Like, "Here's your bag. Take it to the aircraft. Let's go."
Yeah, you look
So,
fine.
but you know, and
Let's
so,
strap him down. Nope, you said you couldn't walk. We're gonna hoist you up too.
but there was some actual SARs. A Harrier went in the water on my second deployment. That a couple of my buddies, it was like perfect. Like if you think of like the most perfect rescue scenario, this was it. We were
Mhm.
off the coast of North Carolina, engine failure, went in the water in about 40 foot of water. The tail section was sticking out of the water. The pilot was sitting on the aircraft. There was zero wind, and
Oh,
everybody on the beach is watching. Aircraft comes in, wind line rescue, swimmer goes in. "Hey, how you feeling?" "Good, just get me out of here." Direct connect, see you later. Like, so everybody was like, "But he ejected." But it's like, no, that's at your swimmer's discretion. You know, it's,
hmm.
it's not a mandatory thing. It advises you to put an ejected pilot in there, but it's not
Yeah,
mandatory. It's at the swimmer's discretion, whatever you think's best in the water, because it's you down there making the calls.
right.
But stuff like that. Tons of uh, hours and hours of searching for people that get lost at sea. But
Yeah, yeah, it's always tough. Okay, so then you became a SAR instructor. You finally came full circle.
yep, came back and became a SAR instructor. Checked in August of 2019, and did that whole stint.
Okay,
So
into COVID.
yeah, and it was weird because you think I talked to other people, other friends that were in the Air Force and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, we pretty much just shut down, did everything from the computer, flew when we had to fly and stuff like that. But at SAR school, we actually ramped up production. So it was like, hey, all the students every single day before they came in, they got temperature checks, got the full questionnaire, and trained as if it was normal. We ended up, we had 2 teams running before COVID happened. And then when COVID happened, we went to back to 3 teams. And just really started grinding it out when the rest of the base, even our admin departments, teleworking. So
I feel like remember the sauce that you put in your ears?
yeah,
That mix of alcohol and whatever. I think that is probably actually the cure for COVID.
yeah, probably.
Whatever the hell they put in that. So yeah, how was it being an instructor, man? Because would you have it 8, 9 years at that point?
At that point, so from the time I was right about 7 when I checked in.
Okay, 7 years.
7.5 years. E5 checked in and just really just got put to it because coming from being in the SWTI role, it's like, hey, I'm doing a lot of the planning and training because I was a training LPO, the tactics LPO at my command, and I kind of let the physical side slip to where I needed to be. Like I still maintained, still could be a full swimmer, but I was not ready like I thought I was. And so that was a huge eye opener. And coming in and doing all that because, when you check in, you're considered an IUT. So you're pretty much a nugget again. Just getting, watch one, teach one, run one. So you're doing everything in the courseware that the students have to do. So you pretty much are going through a less intense version of SAR school to be a qualified instructor. You go through RSSI. That's just kind of like teaching you lifeguard skills and getting you back into it, teaching you the PT standards and everything like that. And then, really focus in. And I focused more on running before I checked in. So I got there and just like running was like my go-to. Everything else was around there. So it was tough and an eye opener, but it was good. It was definitely good you get the fulfillment because you're like, hey, I'm training these guys to be my replacement. Standards were different when I went through the schoolhouse compared to when I was instructing. So, that's tough coming in. Like you expect it to be the same way and you tried to be that enforcer that you got when you were going through the schoolhouse. But it's like, hey, you need to throttle back. You need to pull back a little bit and, focus on, we're trying to create more swimmers. We're trying to bring good swimmers and get them through the course. And if they don't meet standards later down the road, then they'll get weeded out there kind of thing. So, we were during COVID times, we were classing up 20 to 25 students, graduating 12 to 16 of those 20 to 25 with some roll. So, the numbers were definitely being produced, but, there's always some that slip through the cracks. But,
that's life. You get some that slip through and you get some that got weeded out that were clearly good enough to do it, if not better, just life, things happen.
Some are studs and, just make one error doing something and it's like, we'll make an example of you. And then they're out of the program. And so it gets, it's tough in that aspect, but, being an instructor was probably my hardest stint out of all my deployments and everything.
Why?
So August is when I checked in December is when the terrorist attack happened on our command building. That was interesting because we just got 2 teams out on the grinder to PT and somebody rolled up and was like, hey, active shooter, you should probably go inside. And it's like, are you being for real? Because it was like some butter bar and we're like sitting there like, okay, whatever, man. Like you're making things up. He goes like, no, I saw the shooter. And so we start going inside, and you can hear audible pops in the background. And, that was a pretty interesting time. And some of our instructors that were at aircrew school, some swimmers, did some really remarkable things that day. Extremely remarkable things. And, that kind of paved the path and shut down our command building for a year. Pretty much. Command had to go move to the aircrew pool. I think it was 3160 was the building number, where you go through all your long distance swims and stuff like that. So command moved over there. And so did all that. And then COVID happened, and that was interesting in itself. And then after that, we had a student die in the pool.
Yeah.
And so, that happened probably, it was like everything would happen in 6 months. It was like shooting happened, COVID. Actually, our skipper and a department head died in a plane crash after that. And then the student died in the pool. And so it was, just getting put through the ringer on that whole stint at SAR school.
Yeah.
So, and then I actually ended up getting medically separated out of there. Went in for knee surgery, had knee surgery, and filed for a waiver. And they noticed, typical back pain that we all claim. And they actually decided to investigate it and found out I had 3 collapsed discs in my back, and then medically disqualified me.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay. So then you got out.
Yeah, they got moved from the schoolhouse to, I don't know if they had this when you were going through, but first lieutenant. So the kids that get in trouble or fail out the program, waiting for redesignation, or captain's mass. Best way I describe it is the prison, because you got some good people in there, and then you got some bad people in there.
Yeah,
middle ground.
Mix them together, right?
And I actually, put on first about 6 months, 7 months into being at SAR school. And then, so when I got disqualified, they needed an LPO. So I got put in charge of first lieutenant. And I told CMC, I was like, I feel like I'm a prison warden.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
go from Top Gun to instructor to charge of the prisoners.
Yeah. And, these kids these days come up with wildest stuff. I had one kid that was down visiting his family on leave, and texted my ALPO and was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it back. I bent my rim on my car. And I was like, all right, well, I need to see a picture of the rim. So I told my ALPO, I was like, get a picture. I need to look at this. Sent me a picture, cross-referenced it to the internet. First photo that popped up on Google was that photo. Mm-hmm. I was like, hey, sucks. It's a suck, but I'll see you at work tomorrow morning. And this was Sunday night at 6 p.m. and he was in Miami. I was like, you'll be here for muster at 7 a.m. I don't care how you get here, but you're going to get here. Got it. And so, did that whole thing for about 3 months, and then got medically separated through med board in August of 22, and here since.
Yeah. So what are you up to now?
My wife actually just started a business on my first deployment, and it did really well. And so when I got out, she decided, hey, I want to start another business. So she did that and gave me this business. And so I run that now. It's an e-commerce on Etsy, do laser engraving. So it's called the Salty Hut.
Nice.
So we do everything from wedding jewelry to women's bangle bracelets, and then pet tags. And I started getting into the memorial cuffs. Yeah. So I do a lot of those as well.
Nice. What's the website?
It's on Etsy. So it's etsy.com/shop /the Salty Hut.
Okay. How do you spell that?
Just like THE.
THE.
And then salty, SALTY, hut, UT.
Salty Hut. Okay. Make sure people know that.
It's funny because you started that on my deployment where I got my call sign Salty. Mm-hmm. And there was no correlation.
She didn't even know that?
Didn't know.
Oh, that's awesome. Meant to be.
And so she, born and raised around the water. She's from here as well. Grew up surfing, so it just aligns with our family really
Yeah,
well.
totally. That's cool. Well, I mean, it's so different. And I know like once we get out and we're doing like a different job, nothing can ever compare. And we can kind of go through our emotional, mental, spiritual ups and downs of like doing that comparative.
Yeah.
But it seems like, that's something that you guys are working on together.
Yeah.
Um, and that's special in itself. But
And you really kind of realize once you get out, you you lose connection with one side of it, and then you're like trying to figure out how to replace that. You lost this camaraderie between you and a solid group of guys.
yeah.
It's like you get out and it's kind of like they continue on doing great things, and you're like, man, you just kind of feel like you're stuck in the wind, just getting tossed around. And a lot of things that you experience in the military you don't think about until you get out, and then it really
Mhm.
starts creeping in and becomes demons, and
Yes.
it can haunt you. And and that's kind of what happened to me, just through a bunch of experiences that I had. And so it makes things rough because it makes your fuse extremely short, and little things just cause you to pop off. And, you know, we're all stubborn. Every one of us are stubborn, hard-headed people, and don't ever really run from danger. And so I always found myself putting myself in situations that a normal person wouldn't be putting themselves in,
Hmm.
because it was like, we always have a sense of protection. We're always here to help other people. And I would always just see somebody taking advantage of another person in a situation. And most of the time it was car accidents and stuff like that. And I would interject myself in there to try to like be the calming force. And then
Hmm.
one person out of the accident gets mad and then starts popping off at me. And then obviously, that causes a trigger. And then it's
Yeah.
now we're about to party. So, but
Yeah. How are you doing now?
good. One of my wife's friends actually got me in contact with a company up in DC, to kind of help with like coaching and stuff like that. My
Yeah.
next door neighbor, he's like one of my biggest advocates, retired Air Force SAR guy, and would talk to me, and he was like, "Hey, you need to look into this procedure." And then my wife's good friend was like, "Hey, I know somebody that can do that procedure, and it's called an SGB. So you're basically getting it's like a steroid shot into your vagus nerve."
Mm.
And you experience so many things. Like even if you don't um, experience anything traumatic in your military career, flying in itself is traumatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all the near deaths, all the close mid airs, all the issues that you run into in an aircraft, because you're flying in an aircraft that, by the law of physics, is not meant to fly. It's just a big old 20,000-pound piece of machine beating air into submission to float.
Yeah.
And so it causes your vagus nerve, which is your flight or flight nerve, to
Mhm.
swell. And it's just like a muscle. It gets worked out so much and it stays large. And then that causes a constant adrenaline drip and doesn't allow your mind to slow down. Because you can think about it. Think about times when, like, when you got out and you were doing this stuff, your mind was always 1,000 miles an hour, and you never got to really dial back to the green and chill
Yeah.
out. Your sleep is poor. You get terrible sleep.
Mhm.
And so I was like, all right, well, I'll look into it, and actually got the procedure done in June of this year. And it, it was, it changed my life. So,
Wow. How is the procedure? It's a shot, basically.
so basically they just go in and give you a shot like right here. They do one
Uh-huh.
shot here, and the procedure worked because your voice gets really hoarse and it collapses your eyelid, so you lose your nerve feeling on your eyes. And then the next day you go in and get the other side done, and then there's steps that you have to do to go along with it. You can, working on breathing exercises, talking to a coach, not so much a therapist, but a coach, and just like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. What do you suggest I move forward with? And so the company I use paid for all my coaching sessions and the procedure.
Wow.
Things that before, like I used to be able to walk in and like, my kids would leave toys around and it would just, but
Yeah.
now it's like I walk in, I'm like, we'll clean it later. Whatever. Let's,
Yeah.
let's go outside and ride bikes. Let's go do this. So it allowed me to dial back and to be the father that I need to be for my kids without
Yeah.
being so worked up and getting mad and yelling about things that really don't matter to anybody else, but they matter
Yeah.
to me.
It's not healthy.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, it's amazing how that stuff will just, and it's amazing because you're alluding to this, or came straight out and said it because you're straightforward, but so many veterans, whether you're air crew, doing what we did or not, we will hesitate to admit, that we've went through trauma
right,
because we compare it to the extreme, blown up or, lost limbs or died or whatever. Um, and you can never compare. This is not a comparative game. It's you as an individual, and every individual, you can go through the same traumatic event. Every individual is going to respond differently. But you're right, when you are in the red constantly for 4 to 10 to 20, 30 years, you don't just stop on a dime
right.
and the body keeps score. It's actually a book. Um, and that's interesting. Is it SGB?
Yes.
Okay, I gotta look that up. That's interesting. So then how often, because it's a steroid shot, how often do you have to go back in?
Some people, it's a one and done kind of thing,
Hmm.
but you know, some people get it every year, every couple years. It all depends if you're doing the proper follow ups to keep your mind and your body in that relaxed state. So self meditation, breathing, just doing something that you enjoy, to help bring back that euphoric happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's retraining yourself, almost like the reinvention of John Brown. Um,
And,
so my wife is a therapist, and in our book, Calm the Chaos, we talked a lot about this type of stuff. There's a lot of cool stories in there, incredible stories, but there's also just that underlying area of becoming healthy in a very chaotic environment.
right,
It's easy to watch movies or hear stories of, these crazy rescue situations that no one you can't even imagine, and then just take it
right,
from there. It's like, oh, that was a cool story. Well, guess what? When that rescue and these rescues take, a few minutes or a few hours, that's the rest of your life. And, flying and the close mishaps or real mishaps that we have in the aircraft, that stuff keeps, the body keeps score.
yeah,
SEER school, like I said, no one comes out of that the same person. That is a traumatic event, and it's helping to save our lives and, save our integrity and, everything that you're doing the training for, but it reshapes your mind. And like you're saying, swelling of the vagus nerve, it's like it doesn't just go down. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm definitely going to look into that, just because I have a platform and I'm able to talk to a lot of people and hear their stories. So anything I can share to help others.
that procedure is becoming more well known, and there are groups like um, special forces, so like Green Berets and stuff like that. They're trying to transition it to be like, hey, when you get out of service, you are getting this procedure,
Oh,
and just kind of make it more of a norm for everybody. And we're the redheaded stepchild when it comes to special operations.
hmm.
You look at the umbrella and it's like, do we even really classify in there? But like, yes, but like we do. Just because we're not out kicking doors and doing all this stuff, we are still a special program, and it takes a special type of person to make it through this program. And that's a lot of things that people don't understand is
Hmm.
we're not gen pop. We're not normal, like going to do computer work, and we're not, a truck driver and stuff like this. No, we're putting our life on the line every single time we step out of that hangar bay and step foot in that aircraft. You
Yeah.
know, that's why it's part of the Warrior Challenge for the Navy. We fall under the umbrella of naval special warfare, not special operations, or we're operations, not warfare. Sorry.
Right.
So, and that's one of those things. And, it's starting to become more known, but the thing is like, people don't know about us because we don't have, outside of like you,
I'm screwing it up for everyone.
there's nothing that it talks about what we are and what we do.
Yeah.
Your book and the podcast are really things that have opened eyes to people. I would tell people, yeah, oh yeah, I'm an aviation rescue swimmer. They're like, oh, so how deep do you dive? I'm like, no, I don't dive.
Mm-hmm.
I jump out of a helicopter. They're like, what? And so like people don't understand, and it sucks because then you have to go. You ever seen the movie The Guardian?
Oh,
like, yeah, and like kind of something like that.
yeah.
And it's like obviously that's Hollywood, but same concept. Jumped out of helicopters to save people's lives.
Yeah.
And so that's just, and then people are like, oh, and then of course it's never like, oh wow, that's cool. They're like, oh, I love Ashton Kutcher or this.
Yeah.
And so,
Do you have I know I see the Hilo pic behind you. Do you also have like a full body poster of Ashton in your room?
I keep it in the bathroom.
Nice.
Actually, I don't have
shower.
Senior Chief Ben Randall.
That's awesome. All right, you want to pivot to hypothetical?
Let's do it.
All right, I don't have my list here. I don't even know where all my stuff went. Leave for a month and come back. My place is upside down. Okay, let's make one up based on your life. Let's do a surfing accident. So you're flying in a helo, you're the swimmer. You just happen to be over Pensacola Beach by the pier there. What kind of sharks you got out there?
Hammerheads, tigers, bull sharks, those are most prevalent.
Okay, so a tiger will just rip your leg right off. So Bethany Hamilton style here. Well, that's an arm. We're going to take out a leg. Okay, surfer's sitting there. Tiger shark comes up, takes out from the knee down. Person is going to bleed out. You just happen to be flying right over there. You see it happening. Go.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one. So you see it happening, and obviously the big thing is like you're going to be like, we have to assist. We have to do everything we can to assist. So you start running through your checklist. All right, do I have enough tourniquets on the aircraft to help this person? Do we have enough fuel? Hey, am I the swimmer or am I the crew chief? That's the big question.
You're the swimmer.
Okay, so I'm the swimmer. So like, I'm thinking, okay, are there sharks present? How much blood's in the water, right? Because it's ultimately going to be my discretion to go in the water if there's sea predators present. So at that point in time, and it's like, did anybody see it on the beach? Hey, let's start getting on the horn. Let's start making the appropriate calls to get the approval that we need to make sure that we're not stepping on toes, right? Because that's a big thing. You have to make sure that you are coordinating with external forces, right? So from the knee down, life-threatening, but it's not like the femoral tore right at the hip, and you're not going to be able to stop that. So hey, we got a little bit of time, but we need to execute right away. So it's one of those things. Ask the pilots for whatever the best rescue that's going to be at that point in time. It's probably going to be a 10 and 10. Just kind of creep in, get me in the water, get out of the way, let me do my thing. Because I don't want to beat up the water too much. Don't want to get this person over the top, getting tossed around with 200-mile-an-hour wind, beating them in the face. So get me in, let me swim over. I'm immediately going to, so we're flying around. We're not going to have a basket. It's not something that we normally fly around with too much, is a basket. So I'm going to get in, get the patient, swim back, ask for the strop to come down and get them picked up. Realistically, if I'm able to, probably dial back on that one a little bit, is do a direct connect, send them down the wire, let me pick them up, get them in the aircraft. It's the quickest possible way, right? Tourniquet them, make sure they're covered up, not going to go into too much shock, and right there, our best bet is going to be to fly and land in that parking lot and turn them over to somebody that can, hey, stop the bleeding right then and there and start pushing fluids, because we're not going to be able to push fluids in the aircraft. I don't have a corpsman with me. It's just me and a crew chief. So I'm not going to be able to start giving them IV fluid, start giving them morphine and everything like that they're going to need. So control the bleeding as best as possible. Get over there. They have a paramedic station right there at the pier. Land, turn them over, let them start doing their appropriate things, and then assist in whatever ways we can. So that's, that one's kind of a tough one, because it's like everything is centrally located. So it's like, yeah, you're not going to have much transit time. So your fuel burn is going to be fairly low. Don't have all the medical equipment that you need. So what do you do? The best case scenario is, what we're taught. Stop the bleeding, and prepare them for going into shock, or keep them from going into shock the best as possible. And just be on standby just in case anything else happens with them.
Yeah.
You don't want them to code or anything like that. If they start to code, you got to do your proper CPR procedures. But that one is, that's a real gray area kind of recovery for me.
Yeah, I mean, most are. That one's pretty extreme. And such a crowded beach, right? So trying to even like have some crowd control to make space to land to get the patient out. But no, you did everything. Wasn't enough though. They died. So
I turned them over. And I stopped the bleeding the best I could.
No, you did a good job.
That's the thing that most people need to understand. Yeah. Most people need to understand. And it's like a lot of people that join the job don't think about that right away. They're like, I'm here to save people. It's like, you're not going to be able to save everybody.
No. A lot of times it's more recovery than anything. Yeah. And that's the life you signed up for. But yeah, when you think everything's just going to be magical, that's just not the case.
The ultimate hunt that we have of helping people that you get from, so others may live, isn't just a saying it's a saying to everybody else, but to us, it becomes a lifestyle, right? Mm-hmm. You think about it, it's like car accidents, you're stopping, you're doing all this stuff to help. And it's like, you will continue to chase that saying in your life, no matter where you're at. You will continue to hold that close to you so others may live.
Yeah.
And so, I always, when I got out, I was like, I'm going to fly. I'm going to do this again. I need to, like, what jobs can I do? What can I go do? Can I contract over in Africa, doing stuff over there? And realistically, it's like, people need help at your front door.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those things. And, kind of just a segue into this little piece. But that's something I didn't realize until one of our friends from our friend group actually disappeared swimming or diving. And, you end up starting a whole search effort. And I realized at this point that the training that we receive to do this job is far more superior than any other entity that would do search and rescue. Other outside of like DOD kind of stuff. Did work with the sheriff's department. They were subpar. And so he went missing, and it made pretty big spread across Facebook to where the Cajun Navy came over from Louisiana, which is a bunch of volunteers. For those of you who don't know what the Cajun Navy is, they came over to help. And I was talking to one of their leads, and it was like, hey, I did this for a living for a while. This is what I think. And it pretty much executed in the way it should have executed based off of my inputs of that. Mm-hmm. And so obviously it's a collective effort. Everybody that put their time in crushed it. And, it boiled down to the sheriff's department. I was like, I need you guys go look over here. You go look over there. And I'm like, we need to start at last known position and start expanding square from there. Divers are going to go in last known position, expanding square from there. And we ended up actually recovering him. Unfortunately, he succumbed to injuries, but it's one of those things that you, at that point in time, you realize like, hey, I don't need to go chase this hunt. This hunt's right here.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs help.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. If you keep trying to chase exactly what you had, you're not going to find it because that season of your life has passed. But it doesn't mean that those values and that drive doesn't exist.
Right.
Like for myself, I get to be on stage and, talk to, thousands of people, and it's the conversations after the talk of just people dealing with their unique trauma and just having those conversations and listening, not trying to fix them, just someone who can relate on a level that they can't get with anybody else. It's powerful. I get blown away sometimes, and I just have to sit there and play quasi therapist or whatever, but that's the path that led me to here, and your unique path led you to there. And it's that core training and knowledge and experiences that allow us to run towards that fight and to, ultimately serve at the, greatest capacity that we possibly can.
Yeah. We actually ended up starting our own version of that in Emerald Coast United, and it's a local nonprofit that it's a bunch of fishing boat captains, divers, paramedics, and stuff like that that just work together in times of hurricanes, so natural disasters, and people going missing on the beach and everything. We just get on the horn and put it out there and try to just get as many volunteers as possible because you know you by yourself is not a force. You need more people.
Mhm.
So you can't do everything by yourself. You need somebody to help coordinate and direct and push people where they need to go and get all these eyes out there. That's the only way that you would have an ultimate recovery situation is the more eyes, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. So there's no stronger chaos than when there is a traumatic event and you have lots of people that are trying to do the right thing but just have no clue because they will just scatter, and you need that driving force, someone like yourself saying, no, this is where you need to go.
Yeah,
Because in those moments, people are dealing with their own levels of shock, in that situation. And most people do mean well in those scenarios, but they can make the situation so much worse.
that's why they always say your worst survivor is a fellow air crewman. So because they understand the training and they know how to help,
Hmm.
but they just got put through a traumatic event, and it's like, hey, I understand you want us to do this, but you're making this worse. I'm going to put you in the aircraft. You're gone. Get out of my face.
Yeah.
You're hindering this.
Oh.
So
Well, cool, John. Well, lots of amazing experiences, and you continue to do it. What's with all of that, what's a bit of wisdom you would leave our listeners with?
don't ever doubt yourself. That's a big one is if you think you can't do it, it's going to make you to where you can't do it. There's no such word as can't. At least try and accept failure instead of saying I can't do that and not even try.
Mhm.
Put yourself out there and experience life. You know, do things that you dream of doing instead of just sitting back and watching a YouTube video and going, I probably could have done that. Like, okay, yeah, maybe, but you never put yourself to it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's my biggest advice. I tell my kids that. They're like, well, I can't do that. I'm like, I don't want to hear that word. Go out and try it.
Mhm.
See, you'd actually be surprised what your body and mind is capable of doing if you just try. You know, you go through so many experiences, ups and downs, trials, tribulations, and it it's pouring the mold. It's pouring the liquid into the mold, pretty much. You take
Mhm.
molting hot metal, pouring it into a mold. Every time you try something, I'm like, well, I did succeed at it, but it made me better than what I
Yeah,
was. And
absolutely.
that's my biggest thing is try. Just try.
Yeah.
All you got to do.
Yep. Yeah, Yoda would say, don't try, do, or something, but I think you got to try, and it's okay to fail because you learn so much by your failures because the worst decision is no decision.
Right.
And I don't know, it's almost like that's acceptable in our society. And you can really differentiate yourself by just making an attempt and learning from it. So that's
Because
great wisdom.
as A-type personalities, which most of the people that are listening to this podcast have done this job or experience or wanting to do the job, you're an A-type personality, right? You have the dog in you to fight. You're not going to be able to fight if you stay inside and just bark at the window all day long.
Hmm.
Failure hurts us the most, but as A-type personalities, but the action after the failure and how you overcome it is more rewarding than the actual task.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're modeling that to others, whether it's your family or whatever. It's because there's a lot of humility in that, and we grow so much from that humility.
You experience so much humility in life, whatever path you decide, whatever actions and decisions you make, it creates humbleness and it also creates structure.
Yep. Yep. Well, cool, John. Thanks so much for spending some time with us and just for sharing your wisdom and your experiences. And everyone should check out the Salty Hut on Etsy.
Yeah,
Send me
so
your foots.
here, I'll take this one off and show it up close to the screen. So, a lot of guys that are in right now, this was our buddy, Pete.
Nice.
So Pete Lagash, he
Yeah,
was actually going through SAR refresher course, about to go to Japan,
that's
and
right. Yeah.
had cardiac failure in the pool, and they were unable to revive him. So Pete was actually one of my instructors at the RAG, and then kept a solid friendship after that. And so that was a pretty hard blow to the community.
It's a small community. So yeah, no, that's awesome that you have those. So, yeah, definitely check out etsy.com/the salty hut.
Yeah.
Well,
So
cool, John. Thanks so much for being on the show.
appreciate you having me.
Yeah, of course. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Calm in the Chaos podcast. Please subscribe to be notified of future episodes. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Until next time, get out there and make a difference so others may live.